Disclaimer. This content is a work of fiction. All characters are fictional. The story is not based on real events or actual legal proceedings. Before the gavel fell. Episode 1. The Name on the Docket. Chris Katagis did not expect to recognize his own name that morning. Court dockets are long lists. Dense, impersonal. Names stacked on top of names, reduced to ink and spacing. He had reviewed them 100 times before without thinking twice. But that morning, his eyes stopped. Chris Katagis, printed cleanly, centered, unmistakable. For a moment, he assumed it was a coincidence. Names repeat. People share names. It happens every day. Then he saw the case number. Then he saw the courtroom. Courtroom 4, the same room he had testified in years earlier on a completely unrelated matter. The same room with the flickering light near the jury box. The same room where silence always felt heavier than it should. This was not coincidence. The docket did not say why his name was there. It rarely did. Just the title, the number, the time, and the word that made his stomach tighten. Defendant. Chris sat at his kitchen table long after the coffee went cold, reading the page over and over as if repetition might change it. The charge line was blank. No description, no statute, just his name. He arrived at the courthouse early, the way people do when they don't want to be late for something they don't understand. The building looked the same as it always had. Stone steps worn smooth, flags unmoving in the still air. Inside, security waved him through without comment. No one stopped him. No one acknowledged him. That was worse. Courtroom 4 was already open. The door stood ajar, as if inviting him in without permission. Inside, the benches were empty. The judge's chair unoccupied. The clerk's desk bare. Except for one thing, a folder. Tan, ordinary, resting at the center of the clerk's desk. Chris took a step forward, then stopped. He had no right to touch it. He knew that instinctively. Courtrooms teach you rules even when no one explains them. He sat. Minutes passed. Then the clerk entered, carrying a stack of papers. She looked at Chris, checked a list, and nodded once. No greeting, no explanation. "You're here," she said. "Yes," Chris replied, "I think." She did not smile. The judge entered shortly after. Judge Say, older now than Chris remembered. Slower. But his eyes were the same. Sharp, controlled. "Good morning," the judge said, though it sounded more like a statement than a greeting. "Mr. Katagis?" Chris stood. "Please be seated," the judge said. "This will not take long." Those words are never comforting. The prosecutor did not appear. No defense attorney stood beside him. The gallery remained empty. Chris was alone. "Do you know why you're here?" the judge asked. Chris shook his head. "No, Your Honor." The judge nodded slowly as if that answer confirmed something he already suspected. "Neither does the record," he said. Chris felt the words settle in his chest. The clerk opened the tan folder. Inside was a single document, a verdict form, already filled out. The clerk did not read it. She simply placed it on the desk, face down. "The jury has reached a decision," the judge said. Chris blinked. "What jury?" The judge did not answer directly. "Sometimes," he said, "the system moves faster than the people inside it." Chris looked around the room. "I haven't been charged with anything." "That is correct," the judge said. "There hasn't been a trial," Chris said. "That is also correct." "Then what is this?" Chris asked, his voice lower now. The judge rested his hands on the bench. "This is where the record becomes complicated," he explained slowly, carefully. A case had been filed months earlier. Anonymous complaint, vague allegations. Enough to trigger a process, not enough to clarify it. A jury was convened under a sealed proceeding. Evidence presented without a defendant present. Testimony taken under conditions Chris did not understand and was not allowed to ask about. "And my name?" Chris asked. "Entered," the judge said. "Incorrectly, perhaps, or prematurely." The clerk shifted slightly. "The jury deliberated," the judge continued. "They reached a verdict." Chris stared at the paper. "And now?" "And now," the judge said, we have discovered a problem. The problem, as it turned out, was not the verdict, it was the process. A juror had accessed information they should not have seen, not about the case, about the system itself, procedures, limitations, a realization that what they were deciding did not fit the structure provided. The verdict could not be read, not legally, not cleanly. And me? Chris asked. What happens to me? The judge looked at him for a long moment. That, he said, depends on what we do with the record. The clerk picked up the verdict form. Chris leaned forward instinctively. What does it say? The clerk froze. The judge raised his hand. Do not read it, he said. The clerk stopped. Silence filled the room. Chris realized something then, something unsettling. The verdict existed. It was real. It was written. It had weight. But it only had power if it was spoken. The judge exhaled slowly. This proceeding will be sealed, he said. The docket will reflect an adjournment. No verdict will be entered. And the decision? Chris asked. The judge met his eyes. The decision, he said, will remain undecided. Chris stood there, unsure whether to feel relieved or afraid. What if it was guilty? He asked. What if it was not? The judge replied. The clerk placed the verdict back into the folder, closed it, removed it from the desk. And just like that, the moment passed. No gavel fell, no words were spoken, no conclusion reached. Chris was released without charge, without explanation, without record. When he stepped outside, the air felt wrong. Too open, too ordinary. Over the following weeks, he tried to find answers. There were none. No transcript, no public file, no acknowledgement that the proceeding had ever occurred. People he spoke to politely changed the subject. Friends said he should be grateful. But Chris understood something they did not. A verdict that is never read does not disappear. It lingers, not in law, but in memory, and in systems that prefer silence to correction. Years later, when someone asked him if justice had been served, Chris answered honestly, justice requires a record, and without one, all that remains is the question, what was written on the page? If you enjoyed this story, consider supporting the channel by liking the video, sharing it with someone who enjoys fictional court stories, and subscribing for future episodes. Thank you for listening.